We're about news, commentary, conversations, truth, liberty, and God. We stand for American values and our flag. We believe that the Constitution is a document that fortifies rights already given to us by our Creator. We will not apologize for our love of God and country, ever. We are Right America Media.
All right. Welcome back to Blue Collar Intellectual Podcast. I know it has been a rough couple weeks, right? We had the vigil for Charlie Kirk this week. It was a all-day event, and everybody came out for it. I would like to think that everybody genuinely meant everything that they said, but I'm skeptical because I'm skeptical of everything these days, and I trust literally nobody. Nobody. But it was a very inspiring event. Erica Kirk, her statements were phenomenal. The thing that I think rung true and seems to be the lasting impression of the entire event is Charlie Kirk and Erica Trump's challenge to women and men. You know, towards creating strong biblical households, strong forthright men, which we're going to get into because we got a guest that's going to talk about it today. And challenging young women to not do what the mainstream media and popular culture tells them to do. You know, the idea, I've railed repeatedly about this society, this culture, this matriarchal culture of unfettered validation and affirmation, that if you feel a certain way, then it's all good. The YOLO lifestyle, I feel like I don't like this person anymore, so I'm just going to do whatever the hell I want. Or I don't like my job anymore, so I'm just not going to show up. Or I'm not going to put any effort. Or, you know what? Society should have to care about my freaking feelings, so I'm going to go sit in a closet with a blankie and cry about it. Or, I feel like a furry, so I'm going to wear a tail with a butt plug attached to it out in public and ears and shit. Like, I'm going to pee in a litter box in the bathroom. I'm going to, I feel like I want those Jordans, that flat screen, that Xbox, that PS5. So I'm just going to steal it because you know why? Because they have something I want and I feel that I deserve that. So I'm going to go get it. They had a challenge to the opposite for young men to strike up, live a moral foundational lifestyle attached to what it means to be an American. Again, get involved in your faith. Solidify yourself as a human being. Get to know yourself as a human being. Don't have sex before marriage. Don't do drugs. Get a job. Have a career. Have a path, a purpose in life. Because the underwriting hierarchy of how the church is supposed to operate and how societies have been operating for thousands of years is God, the man and his purpose, then the wife, then the children, right? And if you have that infrastructure intact, you can weather anything. Depressions, world wars, regional wars, civil wars, you can culture wars, you can take on anything. But if you don't, one little thing can take you out. So Erica Trump, I listened to her statements. Her statements were largely along the line of women getting back in touch with the fact that we have a duty. We have a duty as human beings, not just a duty to ourselves, a duty to God, a duty to our children, a duty to society. That just because you can do something and it might feel good in the short term doesn't mean that you should do it and that it's beneficial for you in the long term. That is a lesson that I've been trying to teach my son, is like, hey, the underlying guard of being a man is when somebody tells you what is a man, there's a long list of duties and responsibilities. Somebody tells you what it is to be a woman, they list you have ovaries. And we even question and argue about that these days. So what was your take on it?
Pretty much as you said. I haven't been scrolling through the reactions to Erica Kirk from the establishment media on the left so much. When you first started seeing the reactions trickle out, you knew what they were going to be. That, you know, maybe something like the Taylor Swift archetype wasn't going to be held up as still the one to be looked up to.
God, I hope not.
But it's kind of, in that small window, you have kind of the Taylor Swift path, which is kind of what you were describing earlier, and the Erica Kirk archetype among young women. Obviously, I don't want to make that all-encompassing to all women, but just in the case of women who are now younger than me, because I'm now an old man of 40. But yeah, it was a cultural message. It was a message that is definitely going to carry some cultural meaning for our side, and it's just going to continue the conversation. And the left is going to have to find ways to wrangle around it, because most of what she said, to your point, was inarguable.
Universal truths. There used to be this concept in society of universal truths, the things that we can't escape, that we know to be true regardless of how we feel about it. And when we got into this unfettered validation affirmation, this idea of society and morality is being completely subjective, then there's nothing in society that is inexcusable anymore. That means murder is on the table, rape is on the table. We just saw the assassination of Charlie Kirk. We've seen attempted assassinations and beatings of politicians in public. We've seen actual politicians being assassinated. We've seen CEOs being assassinated. And I'm going to be honest with you. Aside of what they've done, because the CEOs that were assassinated, there's a lot of stuff that all of them were tied to. I'm going to say they didn't deserve to be assassinated. And this is me being a fan of the Punisher, and that being like the pinnacle of what he does. He assassinates the bad guys, the bad guys that wear the suits that get away with things, right?
It's such a comment on the moment in which we live, that the person who killed Brian Thompson is better known. His name is better known than Brian Thompson, the victim and the CEO.
Isn't that insane, though?
Yeah.
We're in this point in society where we're making them famous, and that's a bad place to be in. And now I've constantly said the reason you get to these places in society is when people feel unheard, and there is no place anymore to be able to say what you want to say and to feel validated. And that doesn't mean agreed with, that just means validated. People hear you, understand you, that they've listened, and whether or not they agree or not, they have at least listened. When you get to a point where nobody's listening to average people, the next step is we'll make you listen. And that is not a good place for any society to be in, when people feel so unheard that they're like, all right, if you're not going to look, and you're going to keep your eyes closed, and you're going to plug your ears like a child, like a toddler in Walmart stomping your feet, then guess what? I'm going to make you watch. I'm going to make you listen. You're going to hear what I have to say. That's not a good place for society to be in, because that's when things start to get really bad. This society of unfettered validation affirmation is also pulling men and women apart, creating these antagonistic relationships where we're constantly at each other's throats, and we have diametrically different views of the world and what we're supposed to do. And when you have those diametrically different views of the world and a battle amongst the sexes, now, once again, I'm going to preface this and say the vast majority of people in society are pretty good people. And when you turn off social media and you touch some grass and you walk around your community, I was at Dairy Fest this weekend. I was at the Fall Shops at Tuscan Village in Salem, and I saw people just living their lives. However, at the same time, you also see those examples, the furries, you see the examples of the unfettered validation affirmation walking around. And I'm sitting there going, at what point as a parent do you say, no, you're not a cat? It doesn't matter how you feel. You're not a cat. You're not a dog. You're not going to pee on a tree. You're not going to pee in a litter box. And you're not going to eat kibbles and bits for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. There needs to be that point, and I think we're at that point in society where society has had this gut-wrenching vomit repulsion to what the left has pushed in academia, in Hollywood, in popular culture, in music, to where everyone is going, no, 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 no. I'm done with it. Hit the brakes, pull back from the cliff. Let's get back to some semblance of normalcy, because what I'm seeing right now is shit I'm not happy with.
100%. It just occurred to me that we're all on our side of the aisle looking ahead to 2028 and speculating on who the Democrat standard bearer is going to be. It occurred to me that Gavin Newsom started his own podcast sometime in the spring. I can't remember exactly when.
You mean his rebranding?
His rebranding through a podcast from the California governor's office in scenic Sacramento. And his very first guest was Charlie Kirk.
Yep.
And
that was a good conversation too.
I need to look for it now. But what's interesting is full disclosure, I have not seen what, if anything, publicly Newsom has said about the assassination. I'll be very interested to see what he did have to say. One thing I can definitely guarantee is it was politically calculating.
Oh, most definitely. Because when you're in politics, everything is politically calculated. Most of these people are fake. And I don't mean they started out fake. I mean they become fake. The system incentivizes being fake. Most people get into politics because they want to affect change. And then the system changes them to be about politics. And unfortunately, our morality, our foundational building blocks start to crumble a little bit as the system tells you, no, you're going to have to put that off to the side in order to win, or in order to stay in office, or in order to advance. And that's why when my co-host on Grand State Live, Keith, criticizes everybody in politics, I'm like, I see the real people. And the real people I can distinguish from the politician until they make themselves and their whole personality politics. Then I have to look at you as one and the same. And those people are very easy to calculate. They're very easy to see. And that's on the left and the right. Political creatures that all they are is politics. They have no life outside of politics. They couldn't have a conversation with you about anything but politics. Those people are very, very easy to see. I prefer to talk with my friends about more interesting things like cars. I don't watch sports a whole lot, but, since I've been spending more time with my family, me and my wife and my kids, we've been watching the games, which has been a nice refresher because for a while working in politics, your life does revolve around politics. And that gets really, really uncomfortable as you realize, like, wait a minute, I'm starting to get into this loop where I'm unable to have normal conversations with normal people. But once again, social media is at the core of the degradation of society. The conversations that we have, the tonality in the conversations that we have, how we look at each other and engage with each other. I was having a conversation with a guy, he's on the left this weekend. He's at the New Hampshire Dems tent at Dairy Fest. And he asked me why I was over at the New Hampshire GOP tent, because I'm a black guy. And I was like, why wouldn't I be? He goes, well, they don't like you. I go, are you shitting me? Those people over there, they love me. We drink beers together. We hang out. We do barbecues and shit. He goes, yeah, but you're black. The GOP doesn't want you. I go, there are some who don't want me, but the vast majority of people, Republicans, do want me. I go, we're able to have normal conversations with people when we stop the political gangbanging. I go, if you hadn't seen me just walking over from the New Hampshire GOP tent, walking past your tent, how would you have walked up to me? He goes, I would have just asked you how your day was. I go, yeah, like a normal person, right? I go, and then we would have had a conversation. And even though I know I'm a Republican, I know you're a Democrat because you're standing in interjecting yourselves and talking to people, introducing yourselves at the New Hampshire GOP tent, the New Hampshire Dems tent, I would have had a good conversation with you. Why? Because I see no reason to be needlessly antagonistic with you. We can have a rational discussion. We might even come to an agreement, and there's a good likelihood on 85% of things we're probably going to come to a good agreement. There's going to be some issues that we're not. So I bought a 71 Cutlass Supreme, which is downstairs in the parking lot. Woo! And coming out of CVS, there was a lady who stopped me. She wanted to, her husband had one back in the day, struck up conversation. She asked what I do. I was like, I currently work in politics, host a podcast, I'm a political strategist, whatever. I work with certain politicians, specifically on the right. And then she started asking me questions. She goes, oh, that's interesting. I used to be a Republican. I go, okay. And? She goes, but then I was a Democrat. I go, okay. And? She goes, but now I'm an independent. I go, okay. And? She goes, you don't have a problem with that? I go, no, why would I have a problem with that? I was like, do I hate you? Because, like, we're not in rival gangs here. It's like what they do in D.C., these people don't like you. They don't like me. The D.C. Beltway people don't think like normal people. They don't get along with us. And the problem is our entire conversation, the way we got here is because the conversation is being run by people who don't think like us. They've been run by people who can't have normal conversations. Everything is a political calculation or a personal financial promotion, self-aggrandizement calculation. And those people, regardless of what career field they're in, you're never going to have a good conversation with them. I think the way to pull back from where we are right now is we need to start having more normal conversations. Obviously, we see, and I'm going to say this, the uncomfortable truth was Scott Pressler was right. I think it was 3-4 weeks ago, he came out and said we're going to lose big in 2026 because zero infrastructure has been built at the national level to capitalize, at the national, local, or state level to capitalize on the different demographic votes that Trump brought into the GOP into the fold this term. And because nobody's on the ground, people are resting on their laurels thinking, oh, Trump's got it. Pete Hegseth and Marco Rubio, Pam Bondi, all these people, he's got it. No. We are a federalist system. You need to be active in your local community. You need to be active in your state. And then at the federal level, put down your Twitter machines and get active locally. Then at your state. Then at the federal level. In that order, because that's how you save our republic. That's the republic if you can keep it. That's how you keep it. And, I was trying to explain to this woman, I go, you want to know, the reality is we all have a government boot on our neck. It doesn't matter whether it's a red boot or a blue boot. If your local government is a red government, it's a red boot. If your local government is a blue government, it's a blue boot. And that works at the state and the federal level too. So, again, welcome back to Blue Collar Intellectual Podcast. We are going to have some fire guests for you in the next segment. We're going to have Richard Balls. He's an MD, and we're going to get into autism, the causes, how to treat it, and how we can move forward as a society, and how bad has it really gotten. Stay tuned after the break. Make sure to follow Ram TV Live on all platforms. Click like, subscribe, share, support our podcast, support all of our work, support everybody in the Ram TV Live family so we can continue to bring you good information, good content, excellent guests, excellent interviews, and hopefully we can keep this republic. See you in a few.
Forged in Chaos, a warrior's origin story. In this raw, anti-heroic tale, Tyler Gray dissects his life, exposing the unseen war within and exploring the question, what happens when the very abilities that made you a superhero in the eyes of the world turn you into a supervillain in your own life? Despite rising PTSD awareness, we're losing more warriors at home than in war. Forged in Chaos rips the mask off the warrior experience, exposing the truth that most never dare to face. Find Forged in Chaos, a warrior's origin story, written by Tyler Gray on Amazon.
New Hampshire Republican Governor Kelly Ayotte has been making a lot of noise about how she's funding education. The Republican budget she just signed provides more money for education than ever before. She even bragged the other day that New Hampshire is top 10 in the country when it comes to funding our children's education, as if giving money to school systems has anything to do with learning. If you look at the math, and if you got schooled in New Hampshire, the odds are good it's not your best subject. It's the exact opposite. The more money we throw at schools, the less kids learn. We're committed to wasting money on an experiment that failed, unless wasting money to drive parents to homeschool their kids was the goal. We prefer to pick on Democrats, lower hanging fruit and all that, but our rhetorical woodshed doesn't discriminate. If that sounds refreshing, you need to check us out. This is Steve McDonald for Granite Rock, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
How do you know when you've made the right decision? It's the feeling you get in your gut. The one that tells you what's right or wrong. It's the one that says, sure, I can have a drink. Or the feeling that says, okay, I've been drinking. Now what? It's the voice inside you that says, I'm buzzed. Better leave the car when it's time to go. Plan ahead. Catch a sober ride. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
United We Stand. A Marine's Fight, written by Marine Corps veteran Julian Eschyard. This book examines the deepening fractures in our nation, political division, government overreach, and a fading sense of shared responsibility, and offers a battle-tested path forward. A Marine's Fight is a bold and urgent call to action for every American who believes in the founding ideals of our republic. United We Stand. A Marine's Fight can be purchased on Amazon.
Welcome back to the second segment of Blue Collar Intellectual Podcast. We have on the line with us our next guest going to be Dr. Richard Bowles. He is a medical geneticist with expertise in mitochondrial disease, other metabolic disorders, and channelopathies. He completed his medical school at UCLA, a pediatric residency at Harbor, UCLA, and a genetics fellowship at Yale. Dr. Bowles is a clinical and research focused, has been on genetics of common chronic neurological and functional disorders, including autism, ADHD, ME, CFS, pain, and cyclical vomiting. You know, I can't wait to get into this because this is a conversation that my mother-in-law has had with me over the years quite a bit about I want to say the burgeoning epidemic of autism in the U.S. and where is this coming from?
It's coming from many different places. On one side, believes that autism was always there and we are recognizing it more, and that people understand it better and that they're shifting diagnosis. And undoubtedly, there's some of that going on. But as a pediatrician who's been out in the trenches seeing children now for 30-some years, we just didn't see this number of children that were affected to this degree before. I don't care what you called it, intellectual disability, learning disabilities, or anything else, or no label at all. There's certainly been an explosion in cases, regardless of their label. So it's all of the above. I have some opinions as to what's causing the increase as well, but if I'll start with that.
By all means, please tell me your opinions as to what you think is causing the increase.
Well, there's a dichotomy in that you're the ivory towers, and I mean, I went to Yale and to UCLA, so I'm from there. But a lot of these people, they believe it's all genetic, and sometimes people think that if it's genetic, that means you can't do anything about it, and that means that there's no environmental component. But that's wrong, because genetics is turned on and off by the environment. The genes are literally turned on and off by that epigenetic control. And the genes are like the dice. They give us our risk, not if we'll get a disease or not, but if we'll at a risk, high risk or low risk. There's a study that I went with Dr. Richard Fry, he's been in the news lately, who looked at 50 patients with autism and did whole genome sequencing. That's looking at every single base pair in the entire DNA sequence, all 3 billion. And we found that half of them had new mutations that were not present in the parents, actually far more than half. But in half the patients, they had new mutations, and that these new mutations were variants in genes that we felt very complicated scientifically, but we could say that they were the major cause of autism in those individuals. So in those individuals, that is their genetic predisposition. That's like the cards they hold in their hand. Not necessarily they'll get it, but they have that. New mutations not found in either parent. And you may hear the word de novo. That just means Latin for new, so new mutations. We just recently published, it's actually this Friday, it's going to be published. It's available online now because you can always get things online. But 100 more patients and showed the same thing. Half of them had de novo mutations. So what do they mean? What are these de novo mutations? Well, they're mutations that occurred in the formation of the sperm or the egg, or in rare cases in the very, very early embryo, like even before implantation. But they generally occur in the formation of the sperm or the egg, more often the sperm, but not completely. They could have occurred decades before fertilization, or they could have occurred months before, but they were well before fertilization. Why are we having all these new mutations? Were they always there before? I mean, no one really knows the answer. There has a lot of research on it. But I suspect that, mutations are often caused by chemicals, that the chemicals in our environment. It could be anything from from cadmium and other heavy metals in our food supply, to plastics, to air pollution, you name it. There's a lot of things out there that occur birth defects. Also, folate deficiency can cause birth defects. So there's something about the modern environment which is mutating DNA and likely contributing to this autism explosion.
So I had a geneticist explain this to me once upon a time. In the realm of bodybuilding, there's a pretty famous bodybuilder named Dexter Jones back during the Jay Cutler, Ronnie Coleman days. And he had a 17-year-old son. He had conceived with his wife during his ramp up for competition. So in that, the geneticist had explained to me that the reason his son was born physically with the body structure of a bodybuilder. Like as a baby, his body was ripped, shredded, muscled, and all the way through his teenage years, his body would respond to any level of physical activity as if he was on steroids or taking heavy amount of supplementation. And the geneticist also explained this to me, that we have these predispositions, these genetic predispositions within our DNA, whether it's obesity, alcoholism, addiction, all sorts of things. Yeah. And the alcoholic doesn't become an alcoholic if they never take a drink. The person who's predisposed towards obesity doesn't become obese if they're always working out, dieting, stuff like that. It's all of a sudden when your environment starts to trigger these things, now it shows up, and it shows up in spades. Is that basically what you're saying?
Everything's genetic and environmental. None of us are perfect. We all have our likelihood to develop things more than other people, and we all have things that are stronger than other people. So we're all unique individuals, and we have different risks for different diseases as unique individuals. So if you add that genetic vulnerability and an environmental factors involved, that's what causes all disease. It shouldn't be a surprise that autism is the same way. That's what causes autism. That's what causes asthma or diabetes or just about anything else. Like you were saying about like a diabetic, it runs in families. But if it depends on your weight, your exercise, your diet, all of these things will make a difference. You could have the genetics of a diabetic but not have diabetes.
All right. It says here that mitochondrial dysfunction is one of the things that you attributes to the resurgence or assurgence of autism in society. Can you explain what mitochondrial dysfunction is?
Okay. Well, the mitochondria are the parts in our cell that make the energy. And some cells, like a muscle cell or a brain cell that need a very large amount of energy, will have a very large number of mitochondria in it. The mitochondria make the energy. So mitochondrial dysfunction just means what it is, that you're not making energy appropriately. Usually that you're making less energy, or maybe you're making more toxins in the procedure of making energy, and often it's both of those. So most patients that are on the autistic spectrum, or anywhere near that, intellectual disability, epilepsy, even severe ADHD, most of them have mitochondrial dysfunction, as we can measure by testing. And mitochondrial dysfunction is really common. So mitochondrial dysfunction can predispose. Again, it's not causing, it's more likely towards all of those conditions, but it can also predispose towards other things like, well, diabetes, chronic fatigue, chronic and many other conditions. It sounds, how could one thing, mitochondrial dysfunction, do that? But energy is life. If the cells can't make energy appropriately, they're less likely to be healthy, and you're more likely to have disease. And what disease you'll get will depend on all your genetics and your environment, including your life choices.
All right. Can you specifically explain how this relates to autism and how the mitochondrial dysfunction affects the assurgence of autism in people?
Well, the mitochondrial dysfunction is there. In some cases, it's clearly genetic. In some cases, we can't find anything in the genes. That doesn't mean there isn't anything we didn't find, and it apparently acquired over time. And some of it is a mixture of, both of them, some genetic predisposition and some environmental. Many of the toxins that we speak about, from air pollution to heavy metals to plastics, poison mitochondria. So some of it could be acquired from environmental as well as our genetics. Remember, I said that the nerves require a lot of energy. The brain is energy. In an adult, about 2% of the body weight is the brain, but it takes 20% of the energy. In a kid, the brain could be using 50% of the energy. The brain is literally like on fire all the time. It's electrical. And so if you have problems with energy metabolism, it's going to affect the brain more than any other tissues and before any other tissues. So mitochondrial dysfunction being a contributor to, among other contributors, of course, to autism makes sense, and that is what we find. Most striking, though, is that treating mitochondrial dysfunction often helps people with autism, and that's something I've been noticing for the last 30 years.
So how can we improve mitochondrial function?
Well, one of the ways is just to live a better life. I mean, the diet that we eat. Exercise builds mitochondria. Sleeping helps mitochondrial health. Refraining from drinking too much alcohol. Not smoking. Not letting stress get to us. All of these things help mitochondrial health, because mitochondrial health, again, that's the flow of energy in our cells. That's really normal health. Beyond that, you can take supplements. I mean, diet is very important, eating the right things, no doubt about that. But there are supplements that can be taken to help the mitochondria that literally have more than you would get from an entire salad bar of, say, B vitamins or something. There are several supplements on the market that help the mitochondria, and I found that many of these supplements seem to help sometimes very dramatically in people with autism, other times to a lesser extent. But I would say at least 75% of my patients have improved from these supplements.
What supplements are you referring to?
Well, 30 years ago, I was telling people, I'd give them a very long laundry list of take this and take that. It'd be carnitine and the 7, 8 B vitamins and vitamin C and vitamin E and magnesium and zinc and selenium, on and on with that. And some of the people were taking up to 40 different supplements because they felt that it helped. Most of my patients were on between 10 and 20 supplements. It's very difficult to do. So there are now combination products. There are different brands of combination products. I'm involved in one of the brands, NeuroNeeds brand. If I can say the website, neuroneeds.com, yes. All one word. We make Spectrum Needs, which is 33 active ingredients, that vitamins and minerals, all active, all natural ingredients from foods. But they're at doses that will help the mitochondria. We also make other products that are that way. Spectrum Needs plus Q Needs, which is a special type of coenzyme Q10, which is actually the molecule that moves energy in the mitochondria. Those two were tried together in a double-blind clinical trial just last year at Phoenix Children's Hospital. It's a small trial, but it was very significant. Patients that were on the supplement did better in terms of behavior, in terms of their socialization and language. Parental stress was less. And yes, we did test mitochondrial function and showed that it's somewhat normalized on that. That was against the placebo. No one knew if they were on the placebo, and the doctors didn't know either. The placebo smelled, tasted, and looked the same. So they were either on the placebo or on the active supplement. And then when they were on one of them, 50-50, then they crossed over and took the other one. So everyone was on supplement and everyone was on placebo. Those improvements happened in almost every single patient only on the treatment. Actually, in the placebo, they got slightly worse because I think those kids would have gotten worse without treatment anyway.
Wow, that's a big difference. So is this a cure for autism? There
is no cure. No, I don't think there's going to be a cure, at least in my lifetime. I hope that I'm wrong on that. A cure means you take something and then it goes away and it's gone. You don't need to take anything else. But you can manage it. These patients have to continually take the mitochondrial cocktail. Cocktail just means things mixed together, not alcohol. Yeah. Alcohol is actually a mitotoxin, by the way. But anyway, you take these mitochondrial targeted supplements, and you need to take them for life. Some people tried reduced doses later on and find out, they're not just quite as good as they were before, so they go back. It's like diabetes management. You go on diet and you exercise and you say, okay, I'm just going to live it up and eat whatever I want and I'm not going to exercise anymore. Your diabetes is coming right back.
Yep.
It's really like that. It's manageable, not curable today.
All right. So is this treatment available? Where can people find it? I mean, obviously you said neuroneeds.com?
Yeah, neuroneeds.com. I do recommend the Spectrum Needs. We have one called Energy Needs, which is in capsule form because some of the older kids would prefer to swallow the capsules. And then there's the Q Needs, which is the coenzyme Q10 that I said that we added on top of it. It doesn't mix with the powders. It just doesn't get absorbed by the intestine that way. So that's what I recommend. If you get it at neuroneeds.com, you can find that. Of course, I mean, there are other brands as well. I'm trying to get people to understand that we do understand a lot about autism now. We don't understand everything. There's probably more we don't understand than what we do, but we've made a huge headway in the last 5 to 10 years. We know many of the pathways, like mitochondrial dysfunction, that are important, among others. And there are treatments for those pathways, and that most of the kids, but not all of them, improve. It's not true that you can't do anything and that all you can do is behavioral therapy. There are treatments out there, and there are doctors out there that can help. Look for MEDMAPS, medmaps.org. Then you can find a physician next to you that believes that autism is treatable.
I've always found it interesting that there seems to be this disconnect between behavioral therapy and therapy in general and biological treatments for the chemistry that runs our bodies and actually dictates whether therapy can even be effective.
I think they're synergistic in the effect that if you can control the behavior to some degree, you can remove the extraordinary need for energy metabolism that's in a tantruming child. Yeah. And then if you can help the mitochondrial dysfunction, you can help to make their behavior more normal so that behavioral therapy is more doable. It has better effects. So I'm not against ABA and all those things. I mean, they have their place. I realize that there are some issues about them and everything, but I think that they're separate different things, that you can do A and you can do B, and if, try both. See what works.
So Secretary RFK just spoke in front of the Texas legislature about mitochondrial dysfunction. Did you notice anything interesting in the response that he got? Is there any misconceptions that that people are latching on to that are making this harder to get the word out?
Well, I've been involved in this area for 30 years. I've known there's been mitochondrial dysfunction in autism and treating it for 30 years now. When I go to conferences like the MAPS conferences, people know that there, and then they treat it and they know that it makes a difference. It is not just that. There's inflammation as well. There's other parts of it. We're talking about, that you need to address, you need to treat as well. That's why you need a doctor to really look into this stuff and look at all the different avenues. But I mean, what he said in the Texas legislature, and what the president said yesterday, I mean, these are things that I've known about and the autism community has known about for decades. We've known that there are these correlations. That doesn't mean that every single kid with autism has, let's say, vaccines or Tylenol or air pollution or any of that stuff. It's just that there are these studies show these correlations. And these entities, these problems, like Tylenol, can affect mitochondrial function. In fact, Tylenol can poison mitochondrial function. It makes sense to me that in some kids, that there might be an effect of Tylenol as an environmental component with other environmental components and the genetic predisposition. It's not going to be in all kids, but even if it were only in 10% of the kids that have autism, if that's a contributing cause, that would be huge numbers. There's clearly just, we don't have the answers yet, and I'm very thankful for this administration in terms of getting the word out that we've known in our community but hasn't been out there in the way. And yourself as well, to get the word out there that there are these things that can be done, and we really don't know enough. And the answer to not knowing enough is to learn more, not to just say it's A or it's B, but do the study. If you believe your theory is correct, put it to the test.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Bowles. I appreciate you coming on. I'm sure we're going to have you on in near future. Tell people where they can go and support your work.
Well, if you go to neuroneeds.com, and then you can get me from there. Also, it's just richard.bowles, B-O-L-E-S, at molecularmito.com.
All right.
So either
Thank
one
you.
of those. There.
Thank
All
you
right.
for coming
Thank you
on,
very
sir. We'll be right with you after the break. We'll give you a quick 90 seconds, and then we'll be back with our second guest for the day. It is going, we're going to get into how to build good men in society, which means we're getting into how to rebuild society. We'll be back with you after this break.
United We Stand. A Marine's Fight, written by Marine Corps veteran Julian Eschiard. This book examines the deepening fractures in our nation, political division, government overreach, and a fading sense of shared responsibility, and offers a battle-tested path forward. A Marine's Fight is a bold and urgent call to action for every American who believes in the founding ideals of our republic. United We Stand. A Marine's Fight can be purchased on Amazon.
New Hampshire Republican Governor Kelly Ayotte has been making a lot of noise about how she's funding education. The Republican budget she just signed provides more money for education than ever before. She even bragged the other day that New Hampshire is top 10 in the country when it comes to funding our children's education, as if giving money to school systems has anything to do with learning. If you look at the math, and if you got schooled in New Hampshire, the odds are good it's not your best subject. It's the exact opposite. The more money we throw at schools, the less kids learn. We're committed to wasting money on an experiment that failed, unless wasting money to drive parents to homeschool their kids was the goal. We prefer to pick on Democrats, lower hanging fruit and all that, but our rhetorical woodshed doesn't discriminate. If that sounds refreshing, you need to check us out. This is Steve McDonald for Granite Rock, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
The Spirit of a True Patriot, the inspiring story of retired Captain Douglas J. Ernest. Douglas Ernest dives into the thrilling and transformative journey of a man who defied the odds to forge his path as a soldier and a businessman. This book is more than an autobiography. It's a call to action. Experience the remarkable story of a man who never takes no for an answer. You can find The Spirit of a True Patriot, the inspiring story of retired Captain Douglas J. Ernest, on Amazon.
This could be the moment we've been waiting for, the chance to feel alive.
Sometimes we forget we live in one of the most beautiful states in the country. This summer, vacation right here and discover your new.
This is where it all begins. This is where it all begins.
Yeah, I know. Wait, I don't know. Yeah,
see this? This is one of the suit jackets, people, that I have not been able to wear in years. All right. Daddy has lost 30 pounds. I am down. I have to wear belts. I'm fitting into pants I haven't been able to wear in a long time. And I have to wear belts to keep my pants up. I had to go buy a new belt because my belt was too big. This is a damn good feeling. You know what I'm talking about? I'm talking about how to build a man. Society has forgotten. We have a culture that has forgotten how to build good, strong men. And a part of it is focusing on building yourself first, your mental health, your physical health, your spiritual health, and then being a good steward of your community so that you can create more men of the same. And that means not just being present, a provider and a protector as a father. You have to actually be parenting in the household, okay? Because the prison population isn't just made up of fatherless children, it's also made up of children who had disconnected relationships with their fathers. People whose fathers did not actively parent them, teach them the lessons that you were never taught instead of passing them down all the things that you were never given. Okay? We can do both. You don't have to choose, but if you got to choose teaching them the lessons you were never taught. Up with me next is, on the line, we have Alan Hahn, CEO and founder of Iron Academy. He is going to answer the question of what it takes to rebuild a culture that understands how to build real men, good stewards of our communities who are going to get active politically, socially, at a local level, state level, and federal level in that order, because we have a federalist system, and I'm not going to stop reminding you about it. So thank you, sir. Thank you for being on the line today.
Hey, man, thank you for having me. Boy, everything you're saying is music to my ears. That's quite an intro there.
This is something that I know quite a few men who work in this realm of trying to rebuild men. Some trying to rebuild men at my age, by, rewinding the clock and figuring out where we got disconnected in the first place. And some from a foundational level, like where you're at an education level. Is a good friend of mine, King Randall, runs the X Academy for Boys down in Albany, Georgia, where they literally, he got active in his local community, created first a mentorship program, then a school, and is trying to rebuild good, strong men by teaching them the lessons that in society we apparently have forgotten.
We have forgotten. In fact, I would say that every successful culture throughout history has had a way to build boys into men. They've had a rite of passage where they say, hey, you've been a boy up until this age, whether it's 12 or 13. It's time for you to be a man. We're going to separate you. You're going to have to do this significant test. And if you pass it, you're one of us, you're a man. If not, then we've got a problem. But the United States, we do not have those rites of passages, and therefore we don't know what it means to be a man. Most men wouldn't be able to define that other than from a physical standpoint.
So, and this is something I've always found very interesting, is most cultures throughout history have a rite of passage. My dad, my family, we have certain traditions. Like, my dad took me shopping for my first suit. We all play sports. We all do athletics. I went shopping for my first watch, learned how to shake a hand properly, learned how to look a man in the eye, how to stand forthright no matter what situation you're in. And working in politics, I don't have the pedigree or the degree that many do. I walk into a room with millionaires and billionaires and CEOs and politicians and manage to sit down with these men and look them in the eye as if I'm one of them, and gain the respect. And I see a society of men that are not being built to that level, to where no matter what environment they walk into, they're able to purport themselves with a level of self-respect and confidence and understanding of what they're capable of.
Yeah, we're either building men in our society, or more often we're building sheep that follow. And that's not what we need. We need men who can stand up and protect our families, who can love our wives, who can be forever fathers, and who can be leaders in our communities. But that takes intentionality. We have a sword here as our mascot at Iron Academy, and it was crafted by one of the best swordsmiths on the planet. And on one side of it, he has etched in it, because biblical manhood is never an accident. And you could say that across manhood. Our young people, our boys, are going to find manhood a model for manhood somewhere, whether they find it in gangs or whether they find it in the football hero, or if they find it in the Marines, or if they find it in the their local group it means to be a man.
It's funny you mentioned the Marine Corps. I am a Marine, and as one of the things I've always said, for young men who don't know what it is to be a man, who have no direction in life, they don't know where they're going, they don't know which way is up, which way is down, or what the core pillars of who they are. We've had guests on to break down what are the core pillars of who we think we are, and what are the things that are external that we're confusing with who we think we are, and what are the things that are stagnant that we can make a core part of who we are. I'd say faith is one of those things. I'd say family is one of those things. We were talking at the beginning of the show about the duties that men have. But I want to ask you specifically, and I asked all of our guests who work in this type of field, what was the trigger point for you? For everybody, there's that moment where they go, this is something that needs to be fought for. We're missing something. Something's not being said. What was that moment for you?
Wow. So for me, this is a little bit humbling to share this, but early on, so I became a Christian when I was 29. My son was about a year old. When he's roughly 2, I start hearing him say the things that I say, do the things that I do. And I look at him, I think, oh, he's a little John Wayne, because Dad was raised to be John Wayne, because my dad was raised to be John Wayne. And there's nothing wrong with it. As far as models of manhood are concerned, John Wayne is not a bad model. But for a follower of Jesus, there is a different kind of manhood that you should be after. And I had to figure, I said, okay, I don't want my son to be like me. I want him to be far better than that. How do I do this? And that's really where my exploration began. And from an educational context, I started seeing even in Christian schools across the United States, we are graduating boys. And that's true of all schools. Most of our colleges are graduating boys. Most of our women are marrying boys, hoping they'll become men sometime soon. Unfortunately, my wife had to do that. None of that should be true. So that was really the first impetus for starting the Iron Academy. But the second thing is our modern classrooms are set up really well for young ladies. Young ladies in general can sit in a classroom, pay attention, not do the dumb stuff, not fidget, not poke each other. They can go to the next class and they can maintain their cognitive level across the day in general. Whereas guys, they come in the day, come up here, and then they steadily decline throughout the day. And we don't move them around. So young ladies are eating guys' lunch right now when it comes to academics. We actually have affirmative action in our colleges just so we can let guys in. Otherwise, they'd be dominated 75% by young ladies. And that's not good for anybody. So those were really the 2 points of emphasis for starting the Iron Academy. And since then, we've just learned so much about what it takes to build men.
All right. So I'm looking at this. I wrote an article a while back about fixing America's education system called The Forge. And one of the premises that I had is, in order to become a Marine, unlike any of the other branches, we have a crucible.
Yes.
And you don't get your Eagle, Globe, and Anchor unless you complete the crucible. Now, at one point in time, during the ramp up for Iraq, we were trying to recruit in large numbers, and the fires in California had actually prohibited the ability for some Marines to get a crucible. First time to complete their crucible. First time I'd ever heard of the idea of a crucible waiver. They were given waivers for drugs and alcohol and felonies, but I had never heard of a crucible waiver. I think young men need a crucible. And in this article I had written the idea that, you know what, take men young boys before graduating high school on a 24-hour crucible, not to the same level of the Marines, but some level of rite of passage ceremony, something that allows you to graduate knowing what you're capable of, knowing what you're made of, and being able to walk out into the world with that level of confidence and forthright ability to conduct yourself in an honorable manner.
Amen. So you'll be interested to know that our first week of school for all new students is called the Crucible. Yes. And so we actually have 3 rites of passage, and we name them for for metalworking terms. So as you're familiar with, the crucible is where you take your raw materials, you put it into a container, you heat it up, and that's what you experienced at the crucible, the heat.
Yep.
And you scrape off the dross or the waste material. Now you've got something to work with. The second rite of passage for us is the other metalworking term. It's called the forge.
Yep. And
forging camp, we take our guys away for 5 days of survival school up in the Jefferson National Forest. They learn how to make different shelters every day, how to tie different knots, how to secure clean water, how to make fire even with wet wood, what they can eat, what they can't eat. And then we have our solo night on the last night, and they're out there. They can't see or hear the next guy. They have to make their shelter. We see them the next morning. And then the final rite of passage is the finishing, where if you're talking about a sword, you've already pounded it into something useful. You've shaped it, you've heated it, you've folded it. And now it's time for the finishing, where you deburr it, you sharpen it, you polish it, and now you have something presentable to society. And for us, that is the senior trip planning. And so these guys have to raise all their money. They have to plan their senior trip. They have to plan every detail. We call that, I don't like this term, but adulting. It's usually what mom does or the organized parent does. They have to plan every aspect of trip. So last year's graduating class of 2024, they planned, they were 3 days in London, 3 days in Paris, 4 days in Munich, Germany, and 4 days in Florence, Italy. Every aspect of the trip they planned out. I went along with them, and if there was something they didn't cover or something that went awry, I said, all right, figure it out. I'm not helping you with this, and it's okay. We can wait as long as you want. But they learn they are presentable to society. They're not fully formed men, but they're ready for the battles that are coming, and they knew who they are.
God, that is so valuable. That's something that we're definitely missing in society. So as a school, how does it operate infrastructurally? Just a moment. Mr. Producer, can we go another 5 minutes? All right. How does your school operate infrastructurally? And I see a big tenet of your school is, academics, biblically grounded, socially engaging, leadership development, and competitive athletics. Can you explain the infrastructure of how your school operates?
So we're traditional school in many ways, and then untraditional in other ways. We have a very tight structure for how we know our guys. Our older guys, you'll like the challenge coin. I wish I could show you that, because I know as a Marine, you guys love the challenge coins. We stole that from the military as well. But once our guys earn their challenge coin, usually in 10th grade, they become what we call a keeper. And that's from Genesis chapter 4, their brother's keeper. But they are responsible for 1, 2, or 3 younger brothers. They clean the school together every day. They handle small disciplinary matters together. They eat lunch a couple times a week. So we meld the school 6th through 12th grade with the older guys leading the younger guys, cleaning the school, reporting on how well they do things, but really building what we call a brotherhood. And much like places like the Marines and other places like that, we do that early, give them an identity. Identity formation is one of the most important things we can do for character building and spiritual formation. So everything at school is structured for that. If we can have not just we're a school, we have to be good at that. And we are very good at that because we're all male and we have some things there. But more importantly, we want strong husbands, yes, forever fathers, leaders in our community, men who can step up and get things done and shepherd other people well. So that's our primary objective, and I like what we're building.
How many classes have you guys graduated so far? How long have you been around?
We started in 2012. We had our first graduating class. We started in 6th grade, built it up each year. So we've had our first graduating class in 2020. And this year, we hired 2 of our formerly elected school leaders who graduated in that class to be our teachers now. And that's been wonderful to bring that culture back.
Nice. I'm absolutely loving that. That's how you build a legacy of excellence.
I pray that's true. I have people who call me and say, hey, I want to start a school. And one of the things I have to tell them, I said, don't, unless you have a lot of money or the creator of the universe is telling you to do this. And then, of course, you do it. But it is a difficult thing, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. So we envisioned iron sharpening these young men. And what I didn't realize is I was the dullest instrument in the drawer, and all the sharpening's been on me.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
I often say introspection is pain. And that level of introspection,
right.
I think that's the cornerstone of what makes a good man, is the ability to look at yourself in the mirror, break yourself down, understand how you operate, why you operate the way you do, and the ability to be self-critical and to always work towards that next goal to fix the problem.
Amen. And we always have a place where we're taking these guys. We have something called targeted manhood, and we develop them bit by bit, trying to hit the bullseye. But we always have a place to take them as far as character development, as far as their level of engagement with the community and what they're expected to do. But God has taught us a lot through this, and we learn more every day. And I tell you, one of the interesting things about the book, this is not a book just about Iron Academy in Raleigh, North Carolina. But I wanted to put something out there for parents, for grandparents, for people who wanted to change their communities. I wanted to have something I could be proud of for that book, and I feel like we got it. It's not a self-serving book; it's a community-serving book, and I hope it's been really good for our readers.
Oh, what's the name of the book?
The Iron Academy: Forging Young Men Who Serve the King.
All right, where can people find it?
Amazon is the easiest place to get it. Just look up The Iron Academy.
All right. I look forward, I want to come down and I want to visit the campus. I want to see all the work you guys are doing. I love hearing stories like this, especially anything that's moving in the direction of fixing where we've gone in society. We open the show talking about this weak matriarchal culture we have of unfettered validation and affirmation, and how we need to get back to a society where men and women understood that there was a level of duty and responsibility that you have to both yourself, your community, your state, and your country. And by reforging that, all of it starts with forging men first as the foundational building block of a strong society.
Yes. When we don't have God-honoring men, women, children, everybody suffers. When we can build real men, everybody wins. Everybody, our government, our communities, women, children, and it's a crazy thing we do in our society, that in the name of cultural politics, of being woke or following the herd, we neglect one of the very most basic things. And I hope our country can recover from this spell of idiocy that we've had over the last 15 years and really claim a God-honoring culture. And even if it's not a God-honoring culture, it can be a culture that honors the foundation of our country.
I 100% agree with you. I want to thank you for coming on. I look forward to hopefully having you on in the near future. This has been absolutely fantastic, and I will make sure that I get a copy of that book and share it out with people.
Well, thank you, Julian. I look forward to having you down here. Hopefully someday. I think you tell a difference speaking with our sixth graders, and then we give you some time with the seniors too. But keep up the good work and keep fighting.
All right. Thank you, sir. That was the end. This is the end of another fantastic episode of Blue Collar Intellectual Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you join the Ram TV Live family. Like, subscribe, share, follow. Granite State Live is up next, and there's Shadow Band after that. We have Drew Allen, and we have a whole bunch of new shows that are popping up left and right. We have people that are brand new, people who are coming back. We're going to be giving you a whole lot of content, and you're going to absolutely love the things that are coming. As much as I hate to say, I was alluding to it earlier. Scott Pressler, a couple weeks back, said that we were heading towards dire straits. Unfortunately, just like the attempted assassination of Donald Trump, the assassination of Charlie Kirk was a bellwether. It has sparked a little bit of life in the GOP and throughout the country of people who are sick of continuing speeding towards a cliff, waiting to fall off, and feeling this gut-wrenching hopelessness that we've been enduring over the past few years. I want you to get active. Whether it's with Turning Point, whether it's supporting Iron Academy, whether it's supporting King Randall and X for Boys, whether it's Maj Touré, Black Guns Matter, whether it's any of the organizations that are out there trying to make a real difference in society, get out there, get on the ground, get active. But before you do anything, make sure that at home You're taking care of what you need to take care of. Take care of yourself, spiritually, mentally, physically. We'll see you up next week. Up next is Granite State Live. God bless everyone.
United We Stand. A Marine's Fight, written by Marine Corps veteran Julian Eschyard. This book examines the deepening fractures in our nation, political division, government overreach, and a fading sense of shared responsibility, and offers a battle-tested path forward. A Marine's Fight is a bold and urgent call to action for every American who believes in the founding ideals of our republic. United We Stand. A Marine's Fight can be purchased on Amazon.